to be joined by Marcus Redditch, CTO and founder at PageProof, one of our valued partners here at MediaValet. Marcus, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, Stephen. Good to be here. Really excited about the session, and I'm really glad to hear that Damn Week's gone so well so far.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's an important topic, closing the loop on content review with PageProof's FinalFile Delivery. We'll talk about that in quite a bit of detail. But more importantly, it's sunny in the UK and it's sunny in Vancouver, two places that are quite known for their rainfall. So look at that, huh? We're harmonious from a weather perspective.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
So let's get into it. We've all week we've been talking about the power of digital asset management and the importance of the connected ecosystem. So this is really a perfect topic to end down week on. And the reality is in today's content operations, brand operations world, we're inundated with technology solutions. While specific point solutions may solve specific use cases, if they're not connected, then the result becomes content silos across your content ecosystem. And these silos lead to brand compliance challenges. They lead to inefficient workflows. They lead to a lack of data insights and a poor customer experience, whether they be internal or external customers. So, from an internal perspective, a poor experience will lead them to go find something else, go find content elsewhere, or go create their own content, which again leads to that brand compliance uh, challenges that all marketers face. Now, PageProof handles the review and approval of creative content, and it's a really smooth, intuitive experience for getting feedback and sign off from stakeholders, which is always a challenge, especially in a virtual world. It's always a challenge to get that sign off and just getting the feedback. They have a really tight process that we leverage within the MediaValet DAM solution. And as you know, MediaValet is where your approved assets live. That's that single source of content truth for both brand and marketing assets. And used together, MediaValet and PageProof, they cover a huge part of this content lifecycle. But there is one step in the middle where things can still break down. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today, and talk about how we can have that connected workflow, connected content ecosystem, which is critical to success. So, Marcus, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Stephen. So, yeah, absolutely. So that missing link that we're talking about is all about, getting the manual upload out of the picture. So, we talk about things being approved in PageProof, and at that point, it's a matter of, exporting or downloading the file typically, and then renaming it and getting it where you need it to be, and then going over to the DAM, over to MediaValet, uploading that proof and saying, great, now it's in MediaValet, but we've lost our audit trail. We have no connection between the approval process and now it's sitting in MediaValet, and as you said in the intro, it's kind of siloed. We've now got a silo going on where, hey, this was approved, and now we've manually uploaded it into MediaValet, and there's no connection between the two. So you kind of lose that audit, which is something that those manual uploads get us into. And so when you start thinking about manually uploading and you start talking about lifting the volume of your content, and these days, you can see there are a lot of different assets that people are creating and storing in MediaValet. So it's not just, hey, a few pieces of print work like we used to do. It's now video, it's now social, it's everything goes into MediaValet, and it sits in there as your single source of the truth. But it all gets approved in workflows inside of PageProof. And if you imagine that your content velocity and the amount of content that you're creating doubles every year, you now have a big job of manually downloading it, moving it across, and putting it into MediaValet, so it can be distributed out to your various teams and people that want to use it. So this is the gap that we're talking about, which is how do we just fill in that gap between the two? The other thing we can look at here is that, your governance and just making sure that when you look at the approval process and being able to trust the DAM. And now one thing we do know is that once a file has made its way into MediaValet, you can trust it. At that point, you know, hey, this is the asset that's been approved, and this is the asset we are allowed to use in our work. But if you start going backwards from there and saying, well, how did it get here? Who approved it? When? That's when the link breaks down. So I think this is a pretty important piece of the whole picture. So we have actually spent some time working with the team at MediaValet, talking about the problem, and our team came up with a solution for this, and it's called FinalFile Delivery. It is essentially a way of triggering the transfer of the final approved asset from PageProof into MediaValet automatically without any humans sitting in between and downloading and going across the dam and uploading. It's done directly. And this means that you can guarantee that the file that was approved in PageProof is the file that you'll see in MediaValet. That's been approved and is now the asset that you're allowed to, well, not allowed to, but has been approved to use inside of the digital asset management system. And the beauty of this is that you can now trust its origin, and you can also see the compliance record right back in time. So it's a really, really great solution and requires no effort, and it's really fast, which is another big benefit of it. So this setup between MediaValet and PageProof means that your teams can essentially approve the proofs and then sit back and know that it's going to arrive into MediaValet with no effort. Now, the way this looks, essentially, it's as it says here. You essentially approve the proof. It then goes across into MediaValet, and it keeps its link and audit trail intact. So you can always see it. It's done completely automatically. And there's no better way to illustrate this than to actually do a live demo. I love doing live demos, Stephen. I mean, I don't know, it's a really good thing to do, right? Let's jump
Yeah,
in.
it is.
Let's jump in and have a look. So what I'm going to do now is go across and we'll take a look at a demo of this. Okay, so here I am inside of PageProof. And over here I have MediaValet. Okay, so we've got the two tabs here in the browser. So I'm going to upload a proof into PageProof. So I'm going to choose we're going to grab hold of this PDF here. And all I need to do at this point in the setup screen is just turn on, add the tag for MediaValet. So that can be either the word MediaValet in full, or you can just put MV in the tags. It doesn't matter too much. If you want to make this completely foolproof, you simply create a proof template inside of PageProof for MediaValet, and that will then add the tag automatically so that there is no problem. And that means that this asset, when it's approved, even after multiple versions, will be put into MediaValet automatically. So that's all you need to do. Add a tag and your job is done. So of course I'm going to go through and I'm going to add a workflow on here. So I'll go through and just set up my workflow. And what I've also done here is turned on the PageProof intelligence feature as well, because I want to know a little bit about the markup on this proof as well. So I'm going to send this proof out. That's going to upload the proof into the platform. Now, at this point, I'm just going to jump across into MediaValet and explain what's going on here. So what we have inside of MediaValet, we have a category here called PageProof Final File. And this PageProof Final File category is where all of the final approved assets are going to arrive into here. They can be then checked, curated, and then moved into another category directly from inside of here. So this is the landing zone, if you like, of where the assets are going to arrive once they've been approved inside of PageProof. So we've just got that simply set up inside of MediaValet. Really simple and very, very efficient way of doing it. So let's take a look inside of PageProof. So here I am inside of PageProof. I'm opening up that proof that we were looking at before. And if I take a look inside of the tags, and if you remember, there was a tag inside of here, all it is an MV. That MV tag, all it does is it means that this is going to be delivered across into the asset. That's all you need to do. And here we can see up inside of PageProof, I have got the tools on the left-hand side. Now, I'm not going to go through a PageProof demo, but at this point, you can go through multiple different versions of the proof until you get to that final approved asset. You can use PageProof Intelligence to actually help you with the issues on the proof. This one here pointing out spelling mistakes, green border issues, et cetera, et cetera. So just sort of just doing a little bit of a nod towards our AI features and marking up the proofs inside of PageProof. So I'll just sort of point that out as well. But in the end, we get to the point where the proof is looking great. It's gone from being a asset that you have been working on as a draft to now being a final approved asset. And that's done by simply clicking on the approve button here and then saying, yes, that's been approved. What's going to happen at this point is PageProof is going to grab hold of that asset, and because it's been finally approved, it's going to move it over into MediaValet automatically. So there'll be no hands. I'm putting my hands up in the air here. I'm not downloading it. I'm not copying it across to MediaValet. It's all done automatically. And if we go over now into MediaValet and just simply refresh that category, we'll see that the asset has made its way into MediaValet, and we can see it sitting inside of there. So there it is. There is the final approved file. So it's super quick. As soon as that's approved in PageProof, it's now inside of MediaValet automatically. Now, when you click on the asset, what you'll see here is in the description area, we've put in the proof name, the proof identifier, and also a URL to the approval process. So we've got that now contained inside the MediaValet asset. So we've always got the link back to the history of the approved asset inside of MediaValet. So this is a really, really great way. You've now got your asset here for distribution and also usage by your teams inside of MediaValet, but you've got the link back to the approval process and all the audit history that meant we can prove why and how this asset arrived to where it is. So that's a demonstration of the MediaValet and PageProof FinalFile Delivery, getting your approved assets over. So let's dive back to taking a look at the rest of the presentation. So let's go back inside of here. So what we just saw was the benefits of this, and this is pretty important. I'm going to emphasize a little bit here. So there's no more manual downloads. FinalFile Delivery just means that the risk of making any errors or putting the wrong asset into MediaValet has been taken away. So that's, a fantastic benefit straight away right there. Also means it's automatic. So there's, essentially no waiting as well. As you could see, once we press the button to say this is approved, within 20 seconds, it's now inside of MediaValet, ready to be put into the dam, into the right place. So that's a huge advantage as well. And then when it comes to scaling, so if you think about, hey, we've got a lot of content that we're able to create over the next 12 months or 24 months, you've got these strategies for building all of these kind of categories of work that you're doing, whether it's social, whether it's print, whether it's video, whatever it is, you can now deliver these assets into MediaValet at a high volume and don't need to have more people putting these files into MediaValet manually. It's all done automatically, which is a huge benefit in this process. And then the final thing here is that you've got an audit trail. So whenever you're inside of MediaValet and you think, what was the approval process that led to this asset being where it is inside of MediaValet? You can click into the asset itself, and you can link back to PageProof. And inside PageProof, you'll see all of the audit trail, who approved it, when, and which version was approved. So all of that information, the link between the two systems is there, and it's always accessible from MediaValet into PageProof to see exactly what happened with this particular piece of work. So all in all, this is really about just making sure we've got no errors, because assets these days, they go into your digital asset management system. A lot of your teams are not going to question, is this the right asset? They shouldn't need to. They should be able to trust. They should be able to lean into MediaValet and say, hey, I'm downloading this asset. I'm going to use it in this campaign. They shouldn't need to question its origins or question whether it was approved or anything like that. Is it the right version? By using FinalFile Delivery, we can guarantee that the final approved file is now sitting inside of MediaValet. So that's a really big thing. And as soon as your volume starts going up, it's really important to be able to have this guarantee. And I think a couple of good use cases here. Packaging, particularly, is one of those use cases which we've seen that this is an extremely important part of the whole process. You go through very, very strict compliance and proofing for your packaging files, whether it's boxes or labels or whatever it is. And then the one that is finally approved is the one that goes, and it goes out to print, it goes out for any social, it goes out for so many things. So we've got to make sure that's the right thing. And then, of course, being able to deliver those on-brand assets, centralizing it in MediaValet, and then having it go out to those various teams in different areas is a very, very important part of it. So those are definitely the use cases that we've seen for FinalFile Delivery. So at this point, we're open for questions. So you can put any questions into the Q&A, and we're very, very happy to answer those questions. If you've got any questions after the fact, again, very happy to answer those questions through the MediaValet team if you like. So there's a couple of questions here. Let's have a look. How might the process look for assets already in MediaValet that need proofing and proofing a second or third time? What might that look like? Okay, really great question there from Seth. So if you initiate your proofing, you're able to send those over, and that will send it back into the PageProof final file category, and then you'll need to actually put that over the top of an existing asset inside your digital asset management. So that's going to be something that you would do as part of it, but you get the asset into PageProof, from PageProof into MediaValet, and then you'll need to use that to get that over the top of the asset that you have existing. Yeah, so another question here from Holly: is there a way to automate the final file from PageProof final file into a specific folder or category inside MediaValet? At this stage, it puts it into the final file category inside of MediaValet. There is a body of work coming down the line that will mean that you can choose which category to put it into. That is almost a V2 for the integration, but for today, it goes into that category. It's 2 clicks and it's recategorized, so it certainly is something that we're looking to do as well. Anonymous attendee, that's a new name. How do we get this set up? Okay, so the setup of this is it does need to be a PageProof enterprise license. And then if you have a PageProof enterprise license with MediaValet, then this can be set up through the MediaValet customer success team. They'll be able to get you underway with that. So it's a relatively straightforward setup. And then once that's set up, it just sits in the background and delivers those assets into that category for you. Okay, one question here from Sean. Let's have a look. I'm new to PageProof, but assume that all versions of an asset being proofed are stored in PageProof Cloud Storage, and FinalFile is also some MediaValet, essentially doubling storage costs. Do you have recommendations for keeping storage costs down? Yes, we do. Absolutely. PageProof doesn't bill you for storage, so you don't need to worry about that at all. So that answers that question for you. You're only paying for it inside of one tool. Question here from anonymous attendee as well. Does PageProof check for accessibility? So PageProof has, we have what we call Pi Insights, which is PageProof Intelligence Insights. Pi Insights can check accessibility for your files. So it's going to look at color contrasts between like in headings and text sitting on backgrounds and things, and will give you a heads up of any non-accessible items in there. We also have built into the proofing tools the ability to do checks directly inside of PageProof, so you can do those manually as well. So we've got AI looking for accessibility checks, and we've also got some manual checks if you really want to get into the detail of your files. So yes, PageProof does allow you to check for accessibility. Absolutely does. All right.
And I think that's it for questions, Marcus. Yeah, so this is great. Thanks. I mean, I've obviously seen FinalFile Delivery before. And by the way, Pi Insights is is pretty cool as well. I saw your demo a couple of weeks back. Good stuff. I think what's really nice about this session and this integration between MediaValet and PageProof is, this week, a lot of our sessions, we talked about the importance of that connected content ecosystem that many of us in marketing have multiple tech solutions. But if they are solutions that don't work with each other, that's going to cause problems. You have point solutions that solve specific use cases, but a whole series of point solutions just creates these content shadows or content silos. And so, what Marcus has been able to show is how PageProof makes content review and approval fast and intuitive, and then MediaValet can provide your teams with a trusted centralized home for those approved assets. But what we've got is that final step or final file delivery where final assets that are automatically put into MediaValet. So your teams, whether they be marketing teams or sales or other areas of your organization, they know they're working with the final approved assets. And I always look at brand as a house of cards. So you can look really good, but all it takes is one person to pull away a card and that whole brand structure falls apart. So this is a great example of two solutions being tightly integrated to provide a combined solution to marketing organizations and across the org. So yeah, definitely really interesting stuff, Marcus. I appreciate the time. I know it's late for you in the UK. And you're right, your demos are always top drawer. So
Well,
appreciate your time and your insight.
no, no problem. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I think, one thing that I just want to leave people with is I think with digital asset management and Media Valet, the important thing here is trust. And
Mhm.
trust starts with the approval of the final asset. It doesn't start after that, it starts right at that point. So saying when somebody says, hey, this is the approved asset, that's when the point of trust should start, that it's in Media Valet and it's ready for people to use. Just like you said, it's a house of cards otherwise. But I think this really it means that we can reduce the
Mhm.
probability of the wrong asset getting into the wrong place. So I'm really excited about this. We've got a number of customers together already using this, and we
Correct.
think
Yeah.
that it's a great thing for other customers to look at in particular. So talk to your Media Valet reps about final file delivery and and page proof. It's a really great solution.
Great. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your evening. And for everyone on the call, thanks for participating. Thanks for the questions. As I mentioned at the top, we'll get this session out to all of you. And if you do have questions, please reach out to Media Valley or PageProof.
Fantastic. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Take care. Thanks.